Hello everyone, welcome back. It's myself, Rory Paddock, 4 picks from the paddock.co.uk. Now obviously, as we know, there's no racing going on whatsoever. We've all sat twiddling our thumbs, desperate for a bit of action, for someone to get under starters orders or enter a stalls or go to the tape. But it seems that that's not going to be likely for a little while. Gives us a bit of time on our hands. And I thought I'd use this really cool website called Tier Maker. For those that don't know of it, a lot of YouTubers and video content creators have been using it in order to rank their anything from their best Premier League teams of all time to favourite ice cream flavours and everything else in between. Now I thought we can certainly adapt that and apply that to the sport that we love in horse racing. So to give you a bit of video content and give you something to look at, something to watch and to debate and tell me how wrong I am, I decided to rank the last 20 years worth of champion hurdle winners. Now obviously Cheltenham isn't too far in regards to it still being relatively fresh in our mind. So I thought something to do, something to get the debate going, something to get a few comments, have your input as well. So for those who don't know Tier Maker, I'll bring that up on the screen now. Tier Maker allows you to create various lists and rank different options of whatever it is that you like the look of. You create your own tiers, you add your own options. Now as you can see here, we've got all the past 20 years worth of Cheltenham Festival Champion Hurdle winners along the bottom there, their pictures. And I've also basically installed 5 different levels, named them myself, from a one-hit wonder, so a horse that won the race that perhaps wasn't expected to, didn't really achieve much going forward, didn't have much of an illustrious career, Grade 1 stalwart, top class, legend, and all the way up to all-time great. I want to go through the list from left to right as you see them there, talking about each horse and their careers. Now also I want to make it completely out there in terms of the rules that I'll be basically, or the criteria that I'll be using to judge these horses. It's not just specifically their Cheltenham Festival Champion Hurdle success. It's going to be their career as a whole, as an entire entity, and what they could do or have done so far. So, without further ado, the bottom one there on the left-hand side is this year's winner, Epitante, or Epitante, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Although obviously she's had an amazing and an unbeaten season this year, and at the age of 6 she has tons of room to improve. Despite being a multiple Grade 1 winner, you have to feel her best is perhaps yet to come. She's obviously a classy animal, but compared to some of the other horses on this list, achievements-wise, is somewhat pale into insignificance. Now, don't get me wrong, to have a champion hurdle winner would be anyone's dream, but let's be honest, we're comparing some of her achievements to some multiple champion hurdle winners and so on and so forth. Now, don't get me wrong, she could, go and win the next 2 or 3 champion hurdles, and she could be seen as one of the best champion hurdle winners of all time. But she hasn't done that yet. It's very much a case of wait and see, especially considering that everyone absolutely lambasted this year's renewal. Everyone said that this year's champion hurdle wasn't up to much. So, although I'm not going to say she's a one-hit wonder because she still has that potential, I can't really put her any higher than a Grade 1 stalwart. Time will tell. We'll give her that opportunity. She's got that space to potentially improve, and we shall see. Moving on, we've got Annie Power. It's really hard to obviously knock Annie Power's achievements when you look at them on paper. 17 starts, 15 wins, a second and a fall, which was obviously at the last when she looked like the winner of the Mares Hurdle back in 2015. Now, I may seem controversial saying this, but she was perhaps a tad overhyped. Now, looking through the form book, 9 of her 17 wins, 9 of her 15 wins even, came in races of 6 runners or less. Now, obviously, you can't really blame her, too much for that, but when you notice one win was in a match race and 2 others were in 3-runner affairs, it becomes less impressive. Now, obviously, that's not her fault, but look, she had to beat what she had to beat. But when the opposition wasn't there, how highly can you rate those achievements? It's also interesting to note that she only ever won at the festival once. First time around, she got beaten comfortably enough by More of That in the Stayers Hurdle. The following year, she fell in the Mares Hurdle. And then it was third time lucky when she won the Champion Hurdle. But to me, I think the public's affection for her, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the horse as well, perhaps elevates her actual achievement somewhat. Don't get me wrong, a top-class horse, but to me, I think she perhaps didn't show off her true potential. Now, whether or not that there was just not as good opposition around at the time, or whether or not she was handled perhaps too carefully, I don't know. It's definitely one for debate, but for me, she goes in that tier of top class. Now, the next one, Brave Inca, the first of 2 horses on the list who battled it out side by side for a handful of years. Brave Inca's duels with the likes of fellow champion hurdle winner Hardy Eustace and the very punter-unfriendly Archibald, and perhaps to a lesser extent Max Joy. Those 4, when they clashed, it was legendary. It's also interesting to see that this horse is perhaps one of only a few to have ever been ridden by Ruby Walsh, A.P. McCoy, Barry Geraghty, and Davy Russell. Now, from his 33 hurdle starts, he won 13 times, of which 10 were Grade 1s. He's also a multiple festival winner, having won the Supreme back in 2004. He beat War of Attrition in that as well. 1 victory and 2 placed efforts in the Champion Hurdle. It obviously indicates he wasn't just classy, but consistently so. And over a long period as well. His last 2 runs showed he was a shadow of his former self, but please don't let that sort of take away just how good the horse was. Perhaps he'd have gone down as an all-time great if he didn't have to contend with the likes of Hardy Eustace, and he could have potentially dominated that division for many years. But as it was, for me, Brave Inca, top-class horse. You know what? He's a legend. Brave Inca is an absolute legend. He was ultra-consistent, was in the first 3 in the Champion Hurdle on numerous occasions, was a decent novice. Yeah, Brave Inca, right up there, legendary status. The next one, our first multiple Champion Hurdle winner in the lineup, is Bluebird. He's perhaps another horse who doesn't perhaps get the credit he deserves from finishing 3rd in the Supreme behind the legend that is Altior. Bluebird went on a run of 10 consecutive victories that included 7 Grade 1 wins, including back-to-back Champion Hurdle wins, a victory at Aintree, back-to-back wins in the Fighting Fifth, including putting a horse who was seen as the second coming in Sam Crow in his place, and a Christmas Hurdle success. Undoubtedly a brilliant horse, but obviously recent injuries and setbacks have seemed to stall his career, and considering I did sort of call Annie Power out earlier for winning small fields, I have to give Bluebird similar sort of treatment, having won 3-runner, 4-runner and 5-runner races. For some reason I feel like he's a horse that, for whatever reason, just hasn't been taken to, like, he's not a horse that's taken to people's hearts like some of the others that are on this list, and I'm not really sure why. If the horse can bounce back and regain his crown after obviously falling in it in 2019 and obviously not racing in the whole of 2020, then I reckon he'd shoot right near the top of this list. But despite being a multiple Champion Hurdle winner, I can't put him in the top bracket, and for that, he's going to actually find his way right next to Brave Inca as another legend. Okay, we're moving through them. Now, the next one is a horse I absolutely adore. It was actually my first ever anti-post bet when I backed him to win the Champion Hurdle. in around January of 2008. It is Catch It. Obviously, the very cheekily named Catch It. His win in the Champion Hurdle was a convincing one, and he beat fellow Champion Hurdle winners like Punjabi and Sublimity, as well as sort of multiple Grade 1 Victor Archibald as well. But he went off a 10-1 shot on the day, wasn't overly fancied, and it's also worth mentioning that after he won the Champion Hurdle, he raced a total of 11 times afterwards. Do you know how many he won? Absolutely none of them. His last success was this race, the Champion Hurdle, and he went on to do absolutely nothing afterwards. I'd be tempted, despite my love for the horse, to put him down as a one-hit wonder, but I think something you have to consider is his stellar novice hurdle campaign. He won the Triumph Hurdle by 9 lengths the year before, as well as going on to win another Grade 1 at Aintree in his novice season, which to me makes him feel that he perhaps should be moved up one spot. Perhaps a horse that promised so much as a novice, but despite winning a Champion Hurdle, didn't actually deliver what was expected of him. So for me, despite having a stellar novice campaign, despite winning a Champion Hurdle, he's just going to be a Grade 1 stalwart for me. Now, we've already mentioned the next horse, but Hardy Eustace surely has to go into the top bracket and go down as an all-time great. As with Brave Inca, the end of his career took a huge downturn, but please don't let that put you off giving this horse the credit he deserves. Everything from 2007 onwards was a bit below par, to say the least, even though he did beat the likes of future champion chase winners side in Europe in that time. He may not have the strike rate as some of the horses on the list either, but just check out this for form stats and form figures and sort of like notes in the form book. It was a Grade 1 winning novice, and that was his first ever hurdles win. The same season he went on to win the Royal and Sun Alliance at the festival. The following year he returned to Cheltenham to beat future champion hurdle winner Rooster Booster and claim his first champion hurdle win. He then beat Rooster Booster again at Aintree the next month. He made it 3 consecutive Cheltenham Festival victories by winning the champion hurdle once more, beating perhaps one of the most stacked champion hurdles I can think of, including Archibald, Brave Inca, Max Joy, Intersky Falcon, Rooster Booster, amongst others. He couldn't hold on to his crown for a 3rd year running, but ran amazing to finish 3rd behind Brave Inca, before then going on to win a Grade 2 at Ascot. And he won that race at Ascot 2 years on the trot, as well as 2 Grade 1s in Ireland. And without a doubt, for me, if you've got a horse that does that, wins back-to-back champion hurdles, finishes 3rd in the race, goes on to win Grade 1s in Ireland, wins Grade 2 at Ascot, has a decent, really competitive, actually, as a Cheltenham Festival winning novice career as well, Hardy Eustace has to go down as an all-time great. Moving on, we've got Horse Lalois. Apologies for the rubbish pronunciation. A horse that was actually passed around from pillar to post, really, in regards to sort of trainers, which is perhaps a bit unfair and makes me feel a little sad that he was a smidge unloved. But obviously I hope that's not the case, because on his day, Horse Lalois was certainly a top-class animal. He started his career with Francois Dumas in France, where he picked up Grade 2 novice success at Lingfield and Cheltenham. That was in the January meeting, not the March festival. Before he then headed over to be handled by Martin Pipe. That's where in '99 he, on his first race under Martin Pipe, won the Supreme Novices Hurdle, and then followed that up with the Grade 2 success at Aintree. It was only with Martin Pipe for those 2 runs before heading back to Francois Dumas in France. And in the year 2000, he finished 2nd to Wisterbrack in the Champion Hurdle, which is obviously decent enough form. And he then changed hands once more, and this time he headed back across the channel to the tutelage of James Fanshawe. He was, to be fair, he was pretty disappointing, having been pulled up on 3 of his first 4 starts for Fanshawe. But a second behind champion chase winner Zertiop and also second behind Barracuda sort of gave the indication that the horse still had enough ability in the tank. The horse went nearly 2 years without a win, from February the 24th, 2000 until February the 21st, 2002, when he returned to the winner's enclosure in a Grade 2 at Wincanton, before then following that up by actually winning the Champion Hurdle at odds of around 10-1. Obviously, Wonder Horse Istabrack sadly pulled up lame in the race, and Landing Light failed to show the promise he'd shown earlier in the season. In all honesty, despite the inclusion of Istabrack, if you compare this renewal to others that the likes of Hardy Eustace won, this is perhaps pretty lacklustre. The horse never won again for James Fanshawe before making his final move to Paul Nicholls, where I think he won a Class 3 Novices Chase before never winning again. I feel All Aware perhaps deserves to be on a par with Catch It, where it's likely it could have been classed as a one-hit wonder if it weren't for a very good novice campaign. And second behind Istabrack in the race prior, is another Grade 1 stalwart for me, and that is All Aware, and that is where he shall go. Moving on, and we have Jessie. Now, 2014 winner. Is a horse that's just, to me, he was just born at the wrong time. He seems to be sort of sandwiched in between the likes of Hurricane Fly and Faheen. The horse was often the proverbial bridesmaid, and a case of what could have been if it wasn't for those pesky Willie Mullins' horses. He finished second behind Hurricane Fly 3 times, second to Faheen once, and in recent memory, second behind Apple's Jade as well. But don't feel too sorry for him. He managed to beat Hurricane Fly on 3 separate occasions, and was perhaps Hurricane Fly's biggest ever threat, really, during that time. Now, the list of horses he's beaten is pretty impressive as well, with success over the likes of Champagne Fever, Ted Veal, Rule the World, Kite de Burley, Flax and Flare, Zydepour, Diakale, My Tent or Yours, The New One, Captain CB, Petit Zig, Rock on Ruby, Arctic Fire, Carlingford Lock, Grametti, and of course Hurricane Fly. That's a very impressive list of horses to have put to the sword and beaten. He's a horse that deserves more praise than he possibly gets, and although he was often second best, he certainly had his day in the sun, and to me, he was... I think I'm going to put him top class. I think he perhaps just didn't win enough. But multiple Grade 1 winner. And I think just if it wasn't for the likes of Hurricane Fly, would be potentially an all-time great. But for me, that's where I'd put Jessie. Moving on, Punjabi. Not a bad horse on the flat for trainer Geraldine Rees. Before heading for a career change and moving to Nicky Henderson. He took to obstacles straight away, winning a Grade 2 novice hurdle on just his second start over hurdles. He then finished 4th behind Catch It in the Triumph, and 2nd behind Catch It once again at Aintree, before rounding the season off with a Grade 1 success at Punchestown. He then followed that up with 3 unsuccessful runs, including another Cheltenham defeat behind Catch It in the Champion Hurdle, before heading back to Punchestown and winning once again in a Grade 1. That was over the likes of Sublimity as well. Another Grade 1 win over Sublimity started off the 2008-2009 campaign, before falling and finishing 3rd, to then finally claim his Champion Hurdle success in 2009. The one thing I'll give Punjabi is that he won possibly the most competitive Champion Hurdle, with 4 fellow Champion Hurdle winners in a field that consisted of Brave Inca, Archibald, Sublimity, Hardy Eustace, Osana, Catch It, Binocular, and Celestial Halo. But I have to be honest and say that in regards to Brave Inca and Hardy Eustace, this was perhaps in the twilight of their career. After his Cheltenham success, it was mightily disappointing, to be fair, and only ever won once more in a Class 2 handicap hurdle. Despite how good his champion hurdle field was, I'm tempted to put him as a one-hit wonder. However, I think his saving grace is that consecutive Punchestown Festival Grade 1 victories means that I'll probably be kind and move him up and put him as a Grade 1 stalwart. Now, next up, it's the Machine. So obviously a horse isn't christened the Machine if they're not a decent animal, and Faheen is certainly decent to say the least. Still racing as far as we're aware. He was there at this year's festival, went third behind Sam Crow in a novice chase, despite being age 12. It may be the last we see of him, but what a sparkling career he's had. Unbeaten in his first 11 starts. I was fortunate enough to witness his first Cheltenham Festival novice success, where in my infinite wisdom I thought he was worth taking on as a 6-4 favourite. How wrong was I? He won the Champion Hurdle in 2015, beating none other than Arctic Fly, Hurricane Fly, Jessie and the new one. It perhaps wasn't the largest Champion Hurdle field, but it was certainly a classy sort of field that he won. He won at the festival twice in 3 attempts, having finished 6th behind Bluebird there, 3rd to Paisley Park in the Stayers Hurdle, and 3rd as a novice. Say that again. He won twice at the festival from 5 attempts. Top class horse, it beat the majority of horses put before him, and even at the age of 12 went on to be a Grade 1 winning novice chaser, which is just absolutely mental. Was tried over various trips and beat some living legends, but to me there's a little missing, and although it pains me to say it, just misses out on being an all-time great in my eyes, despite the fact he's the horse I probably adore the most on this list, and perhaps have the most love for. Faheen, to me, when you compare it to sort of the numerous Grade 1s, the likes of Hardy Eustace, and certainly Hurricane Fly have won, to me, Faheen, again, another debatable one, would be in that bracket. Next one is last year's winner, Espoir d'Alan. It feels perhaps ever so harsh to rank the sort of the ill-fated horse, because quite simply we just don't know what might have been. It's interesting to see that, I think in a Cheltenham preview evening, trainer Tony Mullins said that Espoir d'Alan was the most impressive champion hurdle winner he'd ever seen, which is amazing praise. He won 9 of his 10 starts, and despite going off at 16-1 at Cheltenham last year, made the bookmakers look silly for pricing him up at such big odds. I think that might have been down to the fact that he was trained by a lesser known trainer in Gavin Cromwell, but he took the scalps of some good horses along the way, including Stormy Island, Wicklow Brave, Melon, Lorena, Sharjah, Apples Jade, and Bouvardaire as well. However, we have to be honest and fair, and just like Appetante, we just don't know how good this horse could have been. You'd like to think that based on his 15 length winning the race, the same horse would have absolutely destroyed this year's field easily. It's sad that we'll never know, and perhaps a tad unfair to judge him, but in line with Appetante, it's probably best place to put him as a Grade 1 stalwart, with an absolute asterisk next to him and a big question mark as to what may or may not have been. Next on the list is Rock on Ruby. Good old Rock on Ruby I'll be straight up, is sadly going to be the first horse inducted into our one-hit wonders list. Perhaps a tad unfair, considering he went on to win 2 Grade 2 hurdles races after his Champion Hurdle success. And the Champion Hurdle he won consisted of very good horses. You could perhaps argue while some of the other horses on this list didn't win much, if at all, after reaching the festival pinnacle. But with the likes of Catchy, who had a fantastic novices career, and Punjabi, who won additional Grade 1s at Punchestown, Rock and Ruby didn't do either. His novice career consisted of runners-up spots behind the likes of Bobsworth and First Lieutenant, and his career after never saw him capture any further Grade 1s either. He clearly had the talent, but often left his best somewhere at home, and for that alone, sorry to say it, but Rock and Ruby to me is the first one-hit wonder. Now, the next horse, we've mentioned this horse on a handful of occasions, and this once listed flat winner for Michael Stout took to hurdles pretty well when winning a 19-runner maiden hurdle, and that is Sublimity. In his first trip to Cheltenham, he finished a decent 4th in the Supreme, before returning to the following year to claim Champion Hurdle success. Seen by many as somewhat of a fortunate winner, it's hard to say that. So it's hard to say that, considering he was a very consistent horse when it came to top class Grade 1 races. But the fact of the matter is, he only won twice after the Champion Hurdle win, one of which was a 4-runner handicap at Cork. Now, credit where it's due, though, he did also claim a Grade 1 success at Leopardstown, beating Brave Inca, Sizing Europe and Hardy Eustace in the process. He was far from a top-class novice and didn't go on to be a superstar. So once again, he's left to find a spot, sadly, next to Rock on Ruby, as perhaps a little bit of a one-hit wonder. Next on the list is the one and only great. It is the one and only Rooster Booster. An absolutely beloved horse. Is perhaps one of the less likely Champion Hurdle winners, shall we say. Not because he wasn't fancied on the day, he actually went off at 9-2, but more so that he didn't go to the usual Champion Hurdle prep route. He started off the 2002-2003 campaign in a handicap. He then moved up to a listed race before claiming a Grade 2, only to then go back down to handicap company. And then, he entered the Champion Hurdle race at Cheltenham. He won all of them, to be fair to him, that season, and his gutsy handicap performances, along with the fact that, obviously we all love it grey, is perhaps what endeared him to the general public. If we were to judge this based on the most impressive Champion Hurdle victories, you'd be hard-pressed to see past Rooster Booster, as he absolutely annihilated the field that day by 11 lengths. And it was a decent enough field too, with the favourite Rhinestone Cowboy, along with Sky Falcon, fellow Champion Hurdle winner Hall War, and obviously much-loved frontrunner Westerner, who was a personal favourite of mine. He didn't do much as a novice, but he became somewhat of a proverbial bridesmaid with form figures that read 3rd of 22, 2nd of 20, 3rd of 24, 2nd of 20, and 3rd of 23. He always ran his heart out, but struggled to find his head in front. He'd gone 16 runs since his last win, but decided to find his head in front at the 2002 festival, where, carrying second to top weight, he held on to win the county hurdle. That success seemed to see him turn a bit of a corner. He went to Aintree and claimed a decent 4th in a Grade 1 before his 5-race winning run that obviously culminated in Champion Hurdle success. He only ever won a couple of times after the pinnacle of his career at Cheltenham, and if it weren't for the fact it was a 2-time festival winner, he could be seen as a one-hit wonder. But he's done enough to move up a spot, and despite the fact that I love the horse, and purely out of heart, I'd love to class him as an all-time great. He was a Grade 1 stalwart in my eyes. Now, the penultimate horse is yet another JP McManus horse. Who would have thought it? And one that is often forgotten. The Nicky Henderson trained French import Binocular dined at the top table for some time during his sort of illustrious career, really. And although he wasn't a prolific winner, he still gave some of the best hurdlers around trouble on his day. As a novice, he won 3 of his 4 starts, including Grade 2 and Grade 1 success. He missed out on a festival success when finishing second behind Captain CB. That was in the Supreme. He progressed further the next season with another Grade 2 victory before finishing third in the Champion Hurdle behind Punjabi. He then disappointed at the start of the 2009-2010 season and only actually managed to win a poor 3-runner listed race. However, that didn't seem to stop him. He clearly had what it took, and in his next race ended up claiming the 2010 Champion Hurdle. He beat the likes of the relatively hotly tipped Khyber Kim, along with multiple Grade 1 winner Solwit. Red hot favourite that day was Go Native, and also the previous year's winner Punjabi. Perhaps not a stellar year, but won it pretty impressively. He missed the race the following year, but came back to claim 4th in 2012 with 2 Grade 1 wins at Kempton sandwiched in between. Sadly, Binocular seems easily forgotten. However, a top-class novice who went on to win multiple Grade 1s and only finish outside of the top 4 in the Champion Hurdle once in 4 attempts, he definitely deserves more credit than he receives, and for that, he's top-class to me. And that is where I'm going to be putting Binocular. Now, last and certainly by no means least, we have Hurricane Fly. A listed winner on the flat in his native France, he transitioned to hurdling like a duck to water to claim 3 Grade 1 novice races. He then took his first stride up against more seasoned hurdlers the following year and sadly finished third to Solwit. However, instead of being yet another sort of promising novice who failed to deliver, the Fly turned things around with Solwit and wrapped up a staggering 7 consecutive Grade 1 successes. Now, within those 7 races, it included the demolition of previous victor Solwit even on 4 occasions. Within those 7 wins came his first Champion Hurdle success in 2011 when he beat Peddler's Cross. His winning streak came to a halt when finishing 3rd in the Champion Hurdle the next year. But as with his first hurdles defeat to Solwit, when he finished 3rd in that race as well, that seemed to spur him on to not let it happen again and decided to better his previous feat and this time racked up 9 consecutive Grade 1 victories in a row. Once again, regarding regaining his Champion Hurdle crown before finishing 4th in the same race the year after. At this point, he started to slow a little after a decent career and finished behind Jessie once again, but just as any great champion, he could bounce back and handed Jessie back-to-back defeats and adding another 3 Grade 1s to his name. He even had enough left in the tank to finish 3rd behind Faheen in the Champion Hurdle that season as well. All in all, Hurricane Fly did it all. 22 Grade 1 victories. He regained the Champion Hurdle crown, was able to mix it with horses with younger legs, beat a fair share of horses already on this list, and even won a listed race on the flat. On his day, he was simply unbeatable. And the list of horses he's had finished behind him, the list of horses that have finished behind him is a who's who of top-class hurdlers. I'd be surprised if we saw a Champion Hurdle winner any better than him in the next 20 years. And that is why he is definitely my all-time great. So, that's my list. Let me know what you think in the comments. Obviously, put your comments in there. Have I got some horses drastically wrong? Have I overestimated some horses? Have I underestimated some horses? Have I been really cruel? Do you think it's relatively spot on? Have I made a massive omission somewhere? I want to know your thoughts. How would you rank the last 20 years worth of Champion Hurdle winners? Let us know in the comments. Any likes, shares, muchly appreciated. And remember to make sure you check out picksfromthepaddock.co.uk.